What's good, YouTube? This is Al B back with another video. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that's a little bit controversial in the producer community. We're going to be talking about using loops versus sampling. Is it the same thing? Is one better than the other? Are they different? What does it even matter? Before we get into it, guys, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so I can keep bringing y'all this dope content. It really helps me out. Without further ado, let's get into it. Yes, sir. All right, guys. So first of all, let's define what we mean when we say samples or sampling versus loops. Sampling or using samples is usually considered to be taking a larger musical work and taking bits and pieces of that musical work, chopping it from the melodies to maybe the drum breaks to different hits and parts of that song, and putting that into a new song, maybe changing the tempo, rearranging the song, not using the song in the way that it was originally used, but taking it and giving it a different energy and a different vibe, and ultimately creating something different than what you started with. When people talk about loops, they're typically talking about sound kits that come with pre-cut loops of musical pieces that are noted with the BPM, that are noted with the key, and some producers are taking those and simply putting drums on top of them, and that's the end of the beat, you know, some EQ and some compression. That's what people typically mean when they say someone who's sampling versus someone who's using loops. I wanted to know what the larger hip hop community thought about the difference between using samples or sampling versus using loops. So I went over to the subreddit Making Hip Hop at reddit.com and I asked the users, are loops the same as samples? The question reads, do you think loops are the same as samples? Just wanted to see what you guys thought. While I get they are technically the same, some people frown on the idea of using loops but are okay with samples. I think people use the term loop when the audio clip is already cut to be looped perfectly, with key and BPM noted, and often with effects like reverb already applied. Samples usually refer to someone taking a larger work and cutting, chopping it up to replay the individual hits, notes, and melodies. Or are they just another silly thing that producers get caught up in when we should just be making fire? And there were some really insightful comments and feedback and some really differences of opinion, but all in all, I think there was a single message and we'll talk about it. But let's first talk about some of the comments that we got. One user said, loops are just a thing, especially from packs. Makes me feel like I know at least 100 others have used the same effing stuff. Some good stuff has come from common loops and samples though. The Amen break is so well known now that it should basically come as a bonus in every sample pack. Make that S yours. At the end of the day, if it's dope, it's dope. It happens with every generation or new style of beats. Cats used to sample all the same records but would have to find different cuts. Maybe it's like that. Maybe. Here's another one. I don't see the big deal about loops, honestly. But I will say it takes more skill to cut a sample and chop it up depending on your method. With loops, it's just load it and put drums underneath them unless you like to chop those. But in short, loops equals samples. Here's another interesting one. Loops are great for beginners. It's like buying a puzzle. The pieces are there, made to fit together. It's fun to put the pieces together and there may be a bunch of different ways they can be assembled. But you're not really an artist if you use a 70 BPM A minor sample designed to make trap to make a 70 BPM A minor trap song. You're the guy who assembled the puzzle. You're the guy who put furniture together from IKEA. With sampling, there's an art and effort in knowing where to look for samples. You need an ear to hear what is dope and interesting. You need technical skill to cut properly. You need technical skill to process it to make it usable. You are changing the context of the sample completely. Unless you're doing weird S like sampling hip hop to make hip hop, you are not told the tempo or key. Other people around the world are not using the exact same part in almost identical ways. So while pre-made loops can be used very creatively, most people don't. Sorry. But if all you're able to do is use loops designed to make trap, I don't respect you as an artist. Nothing should define an artist more than creativity. So if you're not creative, you're not an artist, period. That one got quite a few upvotes. He had some strong words there. Here's one that got downvoted quite a lot. Finding samples is just loops with extra steps. Get off your high horse. Edit. Wanted to add, since you're comparing loops to IKEA, sampling is just like bedazzling a jacket. I think at this point they were having comparisons of how a fashion designer would use clothes. It got interesting in here. I want to put a link down to the specific post. I think it's very interesting to read and just kind of see where people are coming from and get those different perspectives. Here's another interesting one. Using samples and using loops is barely comparable. If you make a sample-based beat, you have to find the sample, might find other samples to complement it, cut it, chop it, rearrange it, process it, and find out the BPM and key. Loops are ready to use, and you just have to layer down some drums, bass, and maybe some pads in a second melody. Also, loops are often made to fit a specific genre. So instead of looking for the right sample, you just Google Roddy Ricch guitar loop and you're done. You can indeed modify the loops, but most people don't. All right, guys, that's all I'm gonna read from there. If you wanna check out more of that, check the subreddit link below. But let me give you my take on this, guys. Listen, when I started out as a producer, I gave myself a really hard time making things difficult for me to get started. If you need to use loops to get started, if that's what gets your momentum going, if that's what builds your passion for producing, by all means, go to it and go for it. If you want to be a really deep, true artist, then I think you should always push yourself in your craft and in your boundaries, right? So with using loops, I think as long as people are using those loops to be creative and to push boundaries, to most importantly, make good music, that is key. Good vibes is what we're all here for. As long as you are striving to do that in the best way that you can, then I say by all means, more power to you. Loops or samples, as long as you're getting the job done of bringing good vibes, making good music, drop good vibes in the comments below if you agree. Good vibes, for real. If you are doing that with your music, then I think you're doing your job as a producer. And that's all we can really ask. So let's not get too caught up in how we go about it, what's a better way. Let's just say there are different ways, right? They're not necessarily better or worse. And what people are looking for is not always the same thing, nor is how they get there. So with no further ado, guys, drop some comments below. Let me know what you guys think. Are loops and samples the same? How do you feel? Does it not really matter to you? Let's just make good music. What do you think? In the comments below, let me know. Until next time, guys, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. This is Al B, and we are out. Yes, sir.